Be ready. 5 seconds. Start. Friends, I speak today to highlight some fundamental features that exist in the regulation of banks, in particular public sector banks. It has been slightly over a month since the last fraud in the Indian banking sector broke news. Success has many fathers, failures none. Hence, there has been the usual blame game, passing the buck, and a ton of honking, mostly short term and knee jerk reactions. These appear to have prevented the participants in this drama from deep reflection and soul searching that can help solve fundamental issues that are the root cause of such frauds and related irregularities in the banking sector, which, as I will explain, are in fact far too regular. Let me start with what has been at the heart of some of the immediate reactions to the Reserve Bank's supervision of banks. In its 2017 Financial Sector Assessment Program of India conducted, completed, and released prior to this episode, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank made the following observations. Firstly, in the publicly released FSSA, the RBI has made substantial progress in strengthening banking supervision. A key achievement was the introduction in 2013 of risk based supervision through a comprehensive and forward looking supervisory program for assessment of risk and capital. The Basel III framework and other international guidance were implemented or are being phased in, including stricter regulations on large exposures. Domestic and cross border cooperation arrangements are now firmly in place. The AQR and the strengthening of regulations in 2015 have improved distressed asset recognition. In April 2017, the RBI established a new enforcement department and revised its prompt corrective action framework to incorporate more prudent risk tolerance thresholds. Secondly, further, in its specific comments on other regulations, accounting and disclosure, the internal control regulations issued by the RBI are adequate and are supported by the requirements of the SPARK risk based supervision system. This system provides extensive guidelines for inspection of the internal control and audit function and prescribes that a bank's internal controls allow identification and controlling of risks. The internal audit departments in banks are required to have appropriate resources and staff with the requisite skills. Tasks can be outsourced, allowing additional expertise to be brought in. The auditors reported that the internal audit of banks was satisfactory. However, the FSAP for India laments at several points the fact that the Reserve Bank's regulatory powers over banks are not neutral to bank ownership. Firstly, in the detailed assessment report on the Basel core principles on the effective banking supervision, some previously observed weaknesses concerning the independence of the RBI and the inherent conflict of interest when supervising public sector banks remain. The RBI enjoys a large degree of operational autonomy, but amendments to several legal provisions and formal grounding of RBI independence in the RBI Act would provide greater legal certainty. The RBI's legal powers to supervise and regulate PSBs are also constrained. It cannot remove PSB directors or management who are appointed by the Government of India, nor can it force a merger or trigger the liquidation of a PSB. It has also limited legal authority to hold PSB boards accountable regarding strategic direction, risk profiles, assessment of management, and compensation. Legal reforms are thus highly desirable to empower the RBI to fully exercise the same responsibilities for PSBs as now apply to private banks and to ensure a level playing field in supervisory enforcement. Secondly, specifically on corporate governance, the appropriate rules on fitness and property and banks' internal governance structures are in place with respect to private and foreign banks. Nevertheless, the influence the RBI may exercise on banks' governance through Section 21 BR Act, placement of RBI representatives on banks' boards, and the RBI's very limited authority under the Banking Acts, as well as the custom to hold the PSB boards accountable, has become problematic. Under the law and according to custom, the RBI cannot hold PSB boards accountable for assessing and, when necessary, replacing weak and non-performing senior management and government appointed board members. All commercial banks in India are regulated by the RBI under the Banking Regulation Act of 1949. Additionally, all public sector banks are regulated by the Government of India under the Banking Companies Acquisition and Transfer of Undertakings Act 1970, the Bank Nationalisation Act 1980, and the State Bank of India Act 1955. Section 51 of the amended BR Act explicitly states which portions of the BR Act apply to the PSBs. Most common thread across the omissions being complete removal or emaciation of RBI powers on corporate governance at PSBs. RBI cannot remove directors and management at PSBs.